Many people struggle when buying PC components, whether they're a novice builder or an expert. Choosing the right parts for your PC build is a big deal, and you obviously want it to last for a long time. Well, in today's video, I'll be giving you the best CPU and GPU pairings currently on the market and what builds they'll work best in. Roll that intro. Hey everyone, Danny here. Welcome to the channel. The first question I have for you is, what do you want your PC to do? I want to go over a few categories here. The first category is gaming only. If you want your PC to do one thing only, and that's game, you really don't need that much. The main thing you'll need to decide on is what resolution you want to play at. Do you want to play at 1080p, 1440p, or 4K? Those are the three main resolutions. They have ultra wide resolutions and stuff like that, but to simplify it, there's three main resolutions and they go up in tiers and you need better performance for each one. The higher the resolution, the higher GPU you'll need. 1080p is the most common resolution according to the Steam hardware survey, and it's been so for a long time and probably will be for quite some time. GPUs like the RTX 3050 and 3060 are great choices for 1080p. But like I said in last week's video, give prices a few more weeks to fall before buying. The RX 6600 and the 6600 XT are the AMD equivalents of the 3050 and 3060, and they can usually be had for cheaper than their NVIDIA counterparts. High refresh rate gaming, even at 1080p, requires something with a little bit more oomph. Something like an RTX 3060 Ti or 3070 from NVIDIA, or on the AMD side, an RX 6700 XT or 6800 non-XT will get you there. You don't have to play on max resolution. You can turn up graphics for those high resolution games and enjoy features such as ray tracing. Or you can turn down your settings and enjoy those high frame rates for first-person shooters where frames win games. The second category is streaming. If you're gonna be using your PC to stream, you might be using it to game as well, unless you're doing it on two separate systems, in which that's a whole separate video I need to make. The only thing you need to look out for is you want something with an NVIDIA graphics card. Streaming used to require high core count CPUs. With software upgrades and advancements in technology and GPUs, NVIDIA has really taken the game a step further. They've created this thing called their NV encoder, and it handles all of the streaming that you're gonna wanna do. So if you got something like an RTX 3050 or 3060, you can stream and game at the same time, and your game barely takes any hit in performance. Normally, I would recommend AMD because their GPUs are so much cheaper, but in this case, their streaming ability is not as powerful as NVIDIA's, yet. Lastly, you might want your PC for content creation. This could be anything from video editing to rendering to 3D modeling. You'll want the entire package when building a PC for this use case. You need a good CPU, a good GPU, and you'll want plenty of RAM, at least in the case of video editing. This is why when a computer is good at content creation, it's usually good at gaming as well. I game using my editing PC sometimes because it can game at 4K resolution and my editing computer has a 4K monitor for content creation. I want to talk about my current suggestions for PC builds. Most people go overboard when building a PC just for gaming. You don't need all the highest end hardware, and most of the time, people end up just wasting the money anyways. That's a good idea for a video. How to save money on your next gaming PC. Stay tuned. Feel free to interchange these CPUs or GPUs however you like. They all have close performance. In the 1080p category, I recommend the Ryzen 5 5600, the non-X, and the RX 6600 XT. On Intel's side, I'd say the i5 12400F and the RTX 3060. Like I said, you can pair the Intel CPU with the Radeon GPU, or you can even pair the AMD CPU with the NVIDIA GPU. It's up to you. The performance is very, very close. For the 1440p category, I'd say the Ryzen 7 5700X and the RX 6700 XT. On the Intel side, the i5 12600K is a good combo with the RTX 3060 Ti. For 4K, you obviously need a beefy GPU. So I'd say the Ryzen 9 5900X and the RX 6800 XT, or the i7 12700K and the RTX 3080. Now that's strictly for gaming. If you're gonna be gaming, this is what I recommend, because I always say to build balanced PCs. Don't just buy a super high-end GPU with something like an i3 or a Ryzen 3. It's kind of silly. For streaming, I only recommend NVIDIA GPUs, as I said. For 1080p, I'd say go with the Ryzen 5 5600 and the RTX 3060. Great combo, 12 gigs of VRAM, I think it would do well. For 1440p, the i5-12600K and the RTX 3070. And for 4K, the Ryzen 9 5900X and the RTX 3080. Great prices, awesome performance, what a deal. Content creation is tough to make a recommendation. It really depends. If you have $7,000 to spend on a PC, you can get the absolute best hardware and cram it into a case all you like. If you only have $1,000 or less, but you want to get into content creation, you can still do it on budget style hardware. One of the cheaper options I recommend for content creation is an i5-12600K and an RTX 3060. The hybrid core architecture is good for multitasking, and the big 12 gigs of VRAM buffer on the 3060 gives you a nice cushion for 2D and 3D rendering. To summarize this for you, if you're only going to be gaming with your PC and you want to play at 1080p resolution, just go with something that's budget style hardware. The RTX 3050 that I have right here is a great contender. It plays games at 1080p, max settings very well, and you can dial them back and get even higher frame rates for the high refresh gamers out there. Plus, you'll be saving yourself a lot of money in the long run. If you want to dabble in streaming, make sure you find an NVIDIA graphics card with that NV encoder. Anything from the RTX 20 series or GTX 16 series come with the NV encoder, so you'll be just fine buying a newer graphics card and getting that upgrade. For those content creators out there, I recommend you go as high as your budget will allow you, because think about it, if you're going to be making money with your PC, you might as well invest as much as you can into it to get that return on your investment. Now, of course, my recommendations might change in the coming months with new PC hardware coming out in the fall. If you want to keep up to date on all the latest hardware releases, make sure you keep coming back to Danny's Tech Channel. Now, I realize I recommend the RTX 3060 a lot on this channel, but I think it's an all-around great GPU. It can game at 1080p and even get into 1440p gaming. It's got 12 gigs of VRAM for content creation, streaming, that type of thing, and it's really not that expensive. Prices have come down a lot over the past couple months. They're pretty affordable if you ask me. I've done plenty of videos using the RTX 3060 in builds and testing, so if you're interested in picking one up, I'll leave them over here and you can go take a look at them now. And as I always say, I'm Danny with Danny's Tech Channel, and I'll see you in the next video.